Okay, guys, I'm getting myself back on here. Let's tune this down. Where's my camera at? All right. Okay. Yo, what's up, Doomy? All up in here already. This is awesome. This is a good start for us, man. I just got my coffee. I got all my notes. I got everything, man. Like, I'm fully equipped and ready to talk about the multiverse, right? So let me get a little sip here first. So the multiverse, I got to record this too because I like to edit this thing up, right? So the multiverse has totally been on my mind as of late. And I'm trying to think what sparked it off. Because I typically, like, if you guys notice, I've kind of avoided even talking about the multiverse throughout this. I kind of haven't done it, right? But, oh, let me get rid of this text up here. But I ended up watching, yeah, it's super complex. It's hella complicated, but now I've gotten to the point that I'm like, it's kind of necessary, right? And here's kind of why. Like, I'll tell you guys what sparked it off. And I had already watched the multiverse, Doctor Doom. I mean, not Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange. And I didn't even mess with the Miles Morales, but I was heavily into like the Crisis on 2. So anyway, I'm gonna talk about multiverse and how I'm coming around on multiverse because it's almost gotten to be crucial for effective storytelling. Like that's actually what it is, right? Like we just got to be honest. Like the multiverse is now just a very powerful. It's a very powerful storytelling tool, right? And so there's a couple of things that I have to hit on first, right? And I mean this, and I'm going to bounce between a couple of things. I'm going to bounce between like who has adopted multiverses and how they've adopted them, right? Because you see a lot. It's not just DC, Marvel. Everybody's kind of already like multiple streams of storytelling way back to the Twilight Zone. So this is one part of it that I have to get into, right? Like how we're defining this, right? Okay, the other part, I'm going to show you this, but we're going to come back because we're not on this part yet, right? The other part is like why you tell it this way. This is another big part because what it does, it forces us to understand two types of storytelling, right? And they both matter. You have linear historical storytelling. Well, I'm on the wrong side. Linear historical storytelling, like one reality, one timeline, one geography, right? And then you have your multiverse storylines, which are many realities and endless possibilities. This is what defines these two. And you guys can recognize this stuff pretty easy, like Star Wars, a linear story. I can go back to the beginning, right? I can go way back, like Star Wars history. I have a long ass history and geography. Like it's okay. This event happened. Okay. What had happened before this event? I can go back 100 years, 1,000 years. What happened after this event, right? I can get Star Wars. I can run it. Same thing with Game of Thrones. Same thing with the Lord of the Rings, right? There's an epic saga based around events, and this event, like this is your core event. Now, in terms of storytelling, I can go vertically, meaning up and down, right? In my world, I can go north and south, so I can run the poles. I can go east and west. Like with this same event, what did it mean over here, up here, over here, down there? What did this mean? And then I can also work on the timeline, moving hundreds of years back and forth. This is the crux of it, but it is one continuous storyline. And that world building matters at a premium because you have to stay within the confines of this world. How you define them. So this is kind of the advantages and the disadvantages. Like and these stories are more story based, right? They are. Okay. The multiverse storylines are about many possibilities for the same characters, right? For the most part. These are more, you know what? I'm cooking, so I gotta turn the AC on. Give me 1 second, guys. Just gotta get this AC on. This is ridiculous in this house. What's going on around here? Okay, so sorry, right in the middle of cooking, I had to go turn the AC on, but it's a mandatory. I told you guys I live in the South now. Okay. So with multiverse stories, these are more about the characters, and the characters most often are like, it's a lot easier to work with true immortals in this character world, right? Because it's more about what would Captain America do under these settings? What would Peter Parker do if it was this? right? That creates our what if scenarios. So we're always following these characters in these multiple worlds. One of the easiest one is like the X-Men, right? The X-Men are always like, what would happen if this piece of legislation goes through or doesn't go through? What happens if this one piece of technology happens or doesn't happen? And the X-Men have done a brilliant job of bridging like timelines while still kind of dealing with like they haven't directly gotten into multiverse, but it's implied. Like it's heavily implied because you could not have the events of Dark Phoenix while the Avengers are around and the Avengers not be there, right? So we kind of accepted it a long time ago. The only reason these characters were most often forced together was for marketing purposes, right? Like it's better for Marvel if you can do crossover events and have all your characters together, even though in storytelling you never really want that. Like Spider-Man stuff doesn't have anything to do with Blade stuff for the most part, unless you intentionally cross their worlds over. And that's what it is. All these are worlds, right? So that's kind of the crux on where I'm going. Like these are kind of a couple of important elements, and I'm going to go back and forth on these three topics right here because I think they're most important. And the last one is just kind of like the scientific component, because there is a science component with the idea of multiple universes, right? Like I have a whole section. So this is kind of how I'm starting off this discussion. The first part of this discussion is kind of defining what a multiverse really actually means, and kind of looking at how prevalent multiverses actually are. So much storytelling has been rooted in this quasi-multiverse type of scenarios without necessarily saying that they were multiverse. And the storytelling is old. It goes way back. And I'm going to get to some of the earliest examples of what I mean when we're talking about multiverse. Like there are other worlds, other histories, other versions. And these ideas are early on. Like we're going to talk about some of the earliest ones here, right? Let's see, where's that at? Okay. So you can kind of see how I've divided this up here. You see, you have the anthology branch of it. And these are your places like your Twilight Zone, your Tales from the Dark Side, Outer Limits, right? And these guys are important. I'm going to discuss a couple of these separately, right? Then you have your parallel universe, Doctor Who, Star Trek, Stranger Things. Then your major comic book universes, and then even in pop culture, we're seeing representations of multiverse or universe, right? Like that universality. It's 100% required for character-driven storylines. Okay, so I'm gonna get into this right now. Okay, let me see if I can get the first one up here. All right, so the first one I like up here. Who do I got? Okay, Twilight Zone. Okay, this right off the bat, like Twilight Zone is probably the first like multiverse that we get experience with. Now, when you step into the Twilight Zone, you're not always someplace else. Sometimes you're at home and some crazy stuff's happening where you live at, but sometimes you're stepping into a universe that's completely different. Like you could step into a Germany where the Nazis won, right? An alternate reality. This is back in the 60s. Twilight Zone was heavily on multiverses. Like when you stepped in, that was the whole idea, is that you could end up in another time or space or reality or truth without ever having to do anything. The Twilight Zone doesn't require any participation from you. Your only participation required in the Twilight Zone is existing, right? You could end up in the Twilight Zone. I don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe I get up out of here. Like nothing's ever been positive in the Twilight Zone. So that's something that we have established about the Twilight Zone, is that it's never going to work out in your favor, right? That's the only consistent. But everything else about the Twilight Zone is an X variable, right? Everything. You don't know what era you're going to come out in. You don't know what time period it is. Like a lot of times, it's focused on things that are ironical for you, like personal punishments. Like you're a racist and now you end up in a Nazi time, or like you end up as a Jew, whatever it is, right? But there's a psychology, but there is definitively a time and a space and place that you end up at. You can't drive there, you just end up there. That is essentially what the Twilight Zone is. And they've done it masterfully. This was really my first, like, if I had to say my first exposure to any type of alternate reality or multiverse scenarios, I got to credit that to the Twilight Zone. Like 100% Twilight Zone, right? And it's very consistent with what I think about how a multiverse would work. So they kind of set the table for me. Okay, the next one that if you guys aren't into, man, this is another classic old school one. Not as popular, but it is Tales from the Dark Side, which right off the bat, these are tales from where? the dark side. Not this side, the dark side. So the dark side was already prepping us for a world that's just like your world. It's a lot of stuff. We got a lot of same. We got the same stores. You got Kroger, we got Kroger, right? You got the Lakers, we got the Lakers, right? Maybe in their universe, like Magic got traded or something like that. I don't know. But the dark side is just like this place, except it's dark. Like they key on that. Like it looks just like it. You'll be looking around and like, man, why does everything kind of look normal, but yet kind of not normal, right? That's essentially the dark side. The dark side is everything that's normal. They tell you, this is the dark side. Everything's just kind of just like you recognize it, except a little bit darker, right? Again, a different place. And it seemed like it manifested different places within that said different place. So this is essentially like two of the major ones. The Outer Limits kind of works exactly the same type of premise. It's just on the fringe, like a fringe reality, things that could happen, just delving into possibilities. So we get this concept, and we've been doing this for a long time if we really recognize who was coming with multiverses and who wasn't, okay? Now, the next one is one of the most famous ones of all time, and of course, that's Doctor Who. Like, Doctor Who really set the table on, like, oh man, why my Doctor Who image didn't come up? It's so infuriating. Let me get this for you guys here. I'm not gonna let this ride, right? Internet tries to deny you. Where are you coming up at? Come on. Okay, guess you're not. All right, so I guess I'm not going to get that one up. But so essentially, like Doctor Who was kind of the next one that really stepped into it. They did it a lot more with time and a lot more with, chronology of it. Like that's kind of where they were coming from. But it's essentially the same thing. And then Fringe, like Stranger Things, like the Upside Down, that was all of a sudden right into it, right? The Upside Down is like our world, except that bitch is upside down. So we saw that right off the bat. And a lot of these work with, when we think about like how these stories work, like again, Stranger Things is a character-driven show, right? We're stuck on who the characters were and why we love those characters, right? Let's see if I can't close this down real quick. Let me see. I'm just trying to pull this Doctor Who image up here. For some reason, it's not going to allow me to do it, but let's see here. Where's that folder at? I just want to close this folder. I want to stop in this task. Okay, let's see if I can bring this file up for you guys here. Because essentially, like Doctor Who, of course, was like British's entry in this. Like this thing spans decades in itself. So they were already prepping like a whole bunch of us to kind of get into the idea of a multiverse. Like we've been on Multiverse for a little while, and that's massively successful. And I think the best thing it did overall for that genre was just start to expose people to the idea of it. So like, again, what are you? What kind of file is this? Again, this cast, like, and they've been massively like successful, massively like prominent in defining multiverse, right off the bat. So this dude, the one who plays from Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, that's my favorite one. I haven't really been into the series. When you're really honest with you guys, like I've watched a lot of sci-fi. I've just never gotten into Doctor Who. Not that I have anything opposed to it, but it's great in that regard. So then we're also talking about, and this is another one, man. This is another one early on. Like we all know Star Trek also had a multiverse, right? Like we've seen Star Trek. Like Star Trek does it directly with this Mirrorverse, right? Like those are a couple, you see it's smaller images, but you can see like this is the world in Star Trek where everybody had a goatee, right? Except for Uhura, of course. Everybody had like their shirts are all different. They got more like V-neck shirts, way more revealing outfits, and maybe it's only Spock that has a goatee. Maybe it's only Spock that has a goatee, but this is how you knew it was evil Spock. Like you could tell, like it was the Enterprise. It was everybody on the Enterprise, just a little bit different, right? Like just a little bit different. But this was Star Trek early on, letting us know, yeah, There is a mirror universe out there. It's very similar. We got all the same stuff. Our ship just slightly different, like slightly more aggressive and sexual at the same time, and a lot more goatees in this world. Like, you got a V-neck. Like, look at that, man. Kirk's got on a V-neck. This is still the military. He's got on a V-neck collar. Look at what Uhura's not wearing. Uhura's basically like in a bikini on, you know, on a battleship. Like, think about what Uhura wore normally, and they said, yeah, let's make that, but sexy. That's what they did. Like, so that's the Mirrorverse. The Mirrorverse, they don't be caring as much about anything else, right? You got to be hot. We would prefer that you wear a sash, right? The sash across the middle. That's also, so if you see your homie, then everything seems normal, but all of a sudden he has a goatee and he's wearing a gold sash around him. That probably lets you know this dude's from the Mirrorverse, right? Like, and we dealt in Mirrorverse a lot. Like, this isn't the only Mirrorverse, you know, controversies that are out here, right? Oh man. So with the Mirrorverse, it requires us to really, really, really stay on point, right? Because we can easily get fooled by the stuff that we think is our normal stuff, right? We'll be running around thinking everything is normal, but everybody here is just an evil version of who they were in our regular world, right? So we're used to all these. So we've been seeing parallel universes for a long time. So then when the comic books do it, like, you know, most notably Marvel and DC, and like, I think Marvel's been more pronounced with it. Like, DC may have kind of, I don't know if DC's really abandoned their multiverse, but they're kind of like, they're basically just doing it, right? They're just quietly doing, like, you notice Superman's last movie, nobody else is in that. Like, they pick the characters that they're going to allow to exist in that universe. So that's exclusively it, right? So it's a lot more control. Marvel's going into all these splinters, and the problem is that with Marvel, and it's not necessarily a problem. I'm not even going to say it's necessarily a problem, right? For Marvel, okay? But here's what Marvel did, and this is particularly my generation, because initially, like, the multiverse was really just well established as what it was in the first place. Characters didn't typically cross over. Like, we didn't have a lot of that. But as I started getting more and more into it, like, they started dragging characters between storylines based on who's popular. So this is my generation. Again, yesterday I just dropped a video, if you missed it, where I was basically going through a pile of my old comic books. So you guys can kind of see what my influences were. So, like, my influences brought me from, like, the singular characters into reading about the bigger universe, right? I started with, like, Thor, and then, you know, Iron Man, and through that led to Avengers, and I had Hulk and I had everybody, right? So they use that as, like, you know, conglomerates are all the characters, but they obviously want you to read their own adventures separately. Like, that's how it works, right? And that'll work within a small group where you can have a world and maybe you have like 6 or 10 branch offs or whatever that all relate. But then we start getting into bigger franchises like the Fantastic Four is now involved, and the X-Men. They don't necessarily work together. So this is why it necessitates it, because it is better storytelling. You're more limited because now you have to take on the limitations or the timelines of every single one of those worlds when it's better to operate separately. So, what Marvel did is Marvel started doing efforts to kind of unify their world. And I remember being marketed to heavily during that whole Secret Wars. Like, if you remember Secret Wars, this was how extremely, extremely influential, especially for my demographic. Like, we were all into the Secret Wars. I collected everything. And what they parlayed that into is not only are you getting all the Secret Wars books, now we're making the universe more connected. So now you have to get other people's comics. So now I'm buying comics in the series to keep up with the story, which is brilliant for them, getting all my little kid money. But now you have all these characters that are ultimately connected. So if they don't work together long term, it's difficult. And stories like the X-Men are too big to be contained within, you know, the universe where the Avengers operate as the top dog. So it's not that. So that's kind of where it went. That's kind of how it ended. Like, DC kind of did the same thing. And even DC, like, I don't know if I would say they're cleaner or not, but with DC, you obviously saw, like, the whole, like, Crisis on 2 Earths, right? Which is actually, like, pretty good. I felt like it was pretty good, but this is, like, very much their you know, this is their end point. Like, this is how they come into it. And it gives it, like, the Flashpoint paradox. So he's messing with time. So it becomes chronologically based, right? So this is kind of how everybody's doing it. I'm going to come back to this in a minute. I want to point something out here, because all this stuff, again, comes from science. Like, this is why it gets really interesting, because we've been hearing all these theories about this for so many years, right? And the first one I'm going to go to is like string theory. Like, if you watch, is it Brian Greene? Like, Brian Greene's a scientist who did this whole series. Man, I want to say this thing dropped like, it might have been like 10 or 12 years ago, but like, it's an excellent series. It might be like, I don't know, man, 10 or 12 episodes, like 10 episodes, maybe less than that. It was something like 8 episodes. And this, I think he's out of New York. Like, he's a highly trained physicist. I'm not sure what his specialty is beyond that. I know he's a physicist. And he does this whole series where he's breaking out the possibility of different laws, different realities, different laws, different timelines. There's the, so he breaks into all these possibilities, how these universes can essentially be just like what we see on the surface, with subtle changes, environmental changes, things like that that have massive impact. So if we talk about string theory and what that meant, the eternal inflation theory, which is like bubble universe, or infinite bubbles of time and space, each one of them containing their own universe. There are many worlds within the ideas of quantum mechanics. So every quantum choice itself, every minute possible choice on the quantum level, creates branching out reality. So this is part of actual science, right? It is being explored. There's the brain cosmology, which our universe is a brain, like floating in higher dimensions. So other brains equal other universes. Like, we are the source of what reality is. And again, some other ancient myths kind of go into that idea of, like, what I'm existing in right now is the manifestation of my own brain. I don't even know if you guys actually exist, right? Like, that's how tuned in I am with my own universe. And then there's like mathematical universe, where every mathematically possible universe already exists. And that reality is very much bigger than what we even imagine it to be. So we're talking about different particle masses, particle strengths, constants in nature. There's so many possibilities that exist within this landscape of multiverses, right? Anything can happen. Inflationary cosmology. Another universe forms later. One collapses, another universe forms based on that. There's bubble 1. This is our place. Bubble 2. This is another place. Like, all these things are postulated by very profound scientists. Like, the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics was initially posed by Hugh Everett III. So the idea is that every quantum event creates branching realities. You flip a coin. You flip a quantum coin. Universe A is heads. Universe B is tails. Both universes simultaneously occur. In that quantum moment, like, that was the moment of choice. That was the moment of possibility. And from that, we branch out into all other possibilities. Anything could happen. And what happens when that coin toss is A or is it B? What happens? And if we look at these, like, the closest I would say in like fictional literature is, like, look at Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, right? Rick and Morty's like very much like that as well. Like, and that's the other part. So I'm going to talk about some of the shows. Let me flip back to this one, right? Because this is important too. Like, even in like standard shows, nobody's immune to the multiverse. And the first one I'm gonna go to, right? Like, they say it out loud, right? Multiverse and Proud. Family Guy talks about multiverse all the freaking time. And it explains exactly what I'm saying about it. Explores identity. This is really like, what is Peter if he was in Bedrock? Right? What would the Griffins be if they were a Japanese family? What would Brian look like if he was a human? Well, if Stewie was a dog, what would he be like? So that's how they use that multiverse. And like, what would we look like in a Disney world? So that's the heart of, like, let's explore identity. This is what you do with, like, Captain America. I want to keep, like, you're the center of the story. I want to explore you under different stimuluses. Some good, some bad. Like, what kind of stress does it create for Thor if you're born in a different world? If you had a different challenge, if you never got your hammer, right? We do all those what if. One of the most influential stories that to me early on comic books was what if Thor had met Conan, right? And the whole experience takes place in Conan's universe, right? And Thor comes there and he's like reduced power, so he's not God power, right? Again, this is whatever. Whose world is that? Crom's world, right? And so, but he doesn't have his hammer, doesn't have any insight. He's just Thor. pretty good strength. Like, you're still strong as hell. You're stronger than Conan. And initially they fight, and they quickly become homies, which I was like, damn, I'm telling down with this because I love Thor and I love Conan. So nothing better than them two being like, yeah, we could kick it together. So they start kicking it, and Thor ends up assisting, Conan do something to save the world. I don't know what it was, right? But he's a hero. They go on adventuring. They get the mission done, and Thor dies. As he's mortal in this world. He dies. And Conan, prays for him to Crom. And Crom don't typically be playing that. But because Thor was so heroic and such a badass warrior, Crom was like, I'm gonna return him to his world where he could be an immortal again. So this is like that's one of the first multiverse crossover. Like Marvel What If to me was killing it back in the day. So everybody gets it. Family Guy does it, right? One of my other favorite ones that's totally not immune to it, that walks into it as well, is of course South Park. And South Park did it pretty well when they did the whole gender swap. Literally South Park did a gender swap, right? They totally did a gender swap, and all the girls were reflective of the characters of the guys. But it wasn't just gender, it was also race. So you can kind of see that. Like Kenny and Cartman, right? We can see she's Kenny, Stan. I don't know who the middle girl, maybe that's Cartman. I guess they didn't make one fat. But so they totally changed the genders and the racial profiles of all the characters, right? And it made for really good TV to kind of see them watch it. So, and they even had the spooky fish. Way back in the day, they had a spooky fish episode, and essentially spooky ones had a goatee too. That was it. They were like, oh yeah, if you're evil, you got a goatee. So they definitely did that. They definitely put up the goatee, and they totally came in on that. So South Park has long been doing that, and I think even if I'm right, and I haven't watched a lot of it, but I'm gonna wager that Rick and Morty is kind of the same. And I don't, again, I'm not a fan. I haven't watched Rick and Morty, but just kind of doing a little research, it seems like Rick and Morty kind of falls into that same type of venturing between, my universe and this universe, and the, myriad of multiple changes that can exist within the universe. So Multiverse is big. We've been sipping on Multiverse tea forever since I was a kid, probably beyond that, in the early storytelling. So these are kind of the pragmatic look at the multiverse. Anthological multiverse, we've had parallel universe, comic book multiverse, and then pop culture multiverse exists, at the same time. And even and I'm not gonna lie, Invincible, they show you multiverse all the time. So they don't have an issue hiding from multiverse at all, right? All these guys kind of dwell in multiverse. And there's enough science that kind of promotes at least why that's worked itself into modern culture, is that we have enough probability or maybe or possibly answers about it that kind of build us up around just the idea of the multiverse, right? So we're heavily rooted, and like I said, now I do believe it allows for much better individual storytelling, and I think that's where we all benefit. As the audience, I benefit more when the X-Men can just be who they are without having to navigate what the Avengers are going to do or what Thor is going to. All those things really complicate the story. I enjoyed watching the latest Superman joint where the world is authentic to what he's supposed to be. A Superman world with Gotham. Those are hard for those two things to exist. So the crossovers is really more about kind of marketing the stories, marketing larger stories together, when the best versions of the stories kind of allow us to be free within that story. With everyone that I put up here, we've kind of shown exactly that. So I'm going to continue to talk about this. I'm going to stay on these topics here. I'm going to make this artwork available. If you follow me on social media, I'll make it available there. I'll drop it into the YouTube channel as well, in the, what do they call it, the community section. So I'm going to drop this stuff in there, and we can have some conversation. So this won't be my first conversation about my last conversation about the multiverse. I'm going to explore some things, some storylines that I like, and I'm going to explore some multiverse stories as well. So I'll be back. Thanks for stopping in. I got to get busy. I got to go to work today. So I will be back later on. I just got to work for a little bit, so it's not a biggie, but I do got to take care of that. Then I'll be back, and I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about yet. Maybe I'll get back into this, but I have some other ideas that are percolating. But jump in. I definitely love support and definitely appreciate you guys hitting me up.